Hey guys, Misery here, back with another CZN video, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to craft god tier decks from scratch with the new Sortie game mode from start to finish. So deck farming has become a lot easier with the introduction of Sortie, which is the new roguelike game mode. You basically complete Sortie runs for this currency up here called Black Mass. As of right now, I have 214,000 of this. This is actually quite a lot. I've been, grinding Sortie the last few days. I've been streaming, if you guys may have seen that. There's actually a Sortie tournament going on that Smilegate was hosting themselves, so I participated in that. But basically in Sortie, you can buy these deck changing item materials, core potentials, abyssal cores, colorless cores, a bunch of cores that you can use to change cards on your deck. Now, I have seen a lot of people struggling with Sortie recently, and something I need to say is that getting these upgrades are very important, especially these base stat upgrades, because you need as many base stats as you possibly can get in Sortie to make it as easy as possible. Now, the unfortunate thing, no other DPS in the game can clear endgame Sortie 30 out of 30 hardcore mode besides Heidi Marie, but you may be able to use other DPS if you're farming on maybe like level 65 or so. But yeah, after you get the important upgrades, and here there's some important upgrades, and this one, like this flash here, or these search agains, these are very important to making your runs more consistent, so you're not starting the first floor with a bad second pick for your characters, because you ideally want a healer first floor. Shielders are fine too, but healers are really where it's at, because you're still going to be taking damage when you're shielding, but if you have a healer, you can just heal all back up. So highly recommend to farm most of these upgrades in Sortie to make your life a lot easier. But showing up on the screen right now is actually going to be the deck that we're going to be building in this video. So it's going to be a Veronica deck. We have the firing preparation on the Shelling Ballista Epiphany, we have quad repos, then we have Pendant of Resolution on when using a skill card 1 reload. So if you farmed a deck before, maybe like the Cassius Morale deck, that's actually going to be a lot cheaper than this one. This one is actually going to be pretty expensive just because of the amount of RNG we're going to need, but I have not crafted a Veronica deck this season and I need one. So I figured I'd just make this into a video for you guys. But the main point of this deck is the 0 repos on the Divine that gives draw 1 cards of this unit. Now you can go with the Divine that, treats this card as a common card and it draws 1 common card, but the problem with that is that it's not as future proof. If another unit in the future needs a common card deck and you need to use Veronica in the team, she's actually going to be drawing those other common cards in our repos. The main point of Veronica is we want to cycle repos into repos, because the first text of repos draw 2 other combatants cards that cannot draw repos, but the Divine part draw 1 cards of this unit, yes, that can repos into repos. Now this Divine will also be drawing Pendant of Resolution, but since Pendant is an upgrade, it's just 1 time, I think that's fine. I think this deck is more future proof and more worth the value than the common card one. And then just for the gear, we have Criticism of Discord, formerly known as Intellect of Discord. For the chest piece, we have Mask Emotions from the new Seasonal Chaos, and then onto the accessory Stell of Hearsay. I think that's how you say it. Now in this video, I'm going to be doing a full run with you guys, so you guys can see from start to finish how I do this run and how I get the template for the deck that I want to craft on. Now heading over to the Seasonal Chaos, where you're going to be farming these templates for the decks. I farmed this on difficulty 8, but honestly it doesn't matter anymore since all of the decks go to 180 point cap after the chaos run is over, so you can go difficulty 7 if you're having trouble clearing with auto chaos, or just trouble in general. But some modifiers you may want to look out for is this elite modifier, add 6 elite areas. This can actually take up question mark zones and give you less of a chance for the copy event. And then the decreased max HP, if you're having trouble surviving, you're ideally going to want to avoid this modifier. Minus credits isn't too bad because you just get so many credits in Seasonal Chaos, so that one's perfectly fine. You don't really need to worry about that one. If you're using somebody maybe like 9, I highly advise not to run the neglect modifier, because if you discard your hue, you're just kind of out of luck, and it's a really bad situation if you're discarding your hue because you have no other DPS or reliable source to clear the chaos. And then some other modifiers if you're still having trouble is Fortitude and Gangrene. I don't really recommend either of those if you're having trouble, because they can be a bit tricky. Ideally want to avoid as many of those modifiers that I said as you possibly can. But enough of me explaining things, let's get straight into this run. So starting off with this run, we actually are going to be using these delegates for the quick auto chaos feature. This is going to speed it up a ton. So we're going to take that left option there for the select and remove, so we can remove as many Veronica cards as we possibly can, make the deck as thin as possible like we want. Most of this is just going to be battles that we speed through. Take the 200 credits here, because ideally you want to get as many credits as you possibly can for as many removes and gear. Here's actually the most important thing when farming the template of the deck, because you can change all of the epiphanies and everything for the cards in the template, but you cannot change the gear. So gear is permanent and it's the most important, which is why Cthulhu is very important when doing these quick auto runs, because ideally you want to farm until you get Cthulhu, and then you want the 18% attack weapon or the 8% ally attack weapon. If you're unlucky, you can go Spear of Randomness, which is pretty decent for a support deck, because it gives AP and draw at the start of the battle, but it's just at the start of the battle, so it's kind of unfortunate that it's just for 1 turn, but it's not the worst thing in the world. There we take the chess piece with the engraving. Engravings are also really important. That's what we're going to be searching for in most shops, trying to min-max the engravings. Any of the other epiphanies for Mika or Haide, those aren't going to be important because, we're just building Veronica this run. Same with the Persona cards, we're at 180 out of 180 point cap, so we have no room for Persona cards. Going to check how many cards I have left on Veronica. We can remove Kowalski, so we go for the remove option. Remove Kowalski, and yeah, the deck's looking pretty thin right now. Check the engravings for this chess piece. We get Mask of Emotions here, which is probably the best chess piece in the Seasonal Chaos. Just keep refreshing, see if we can get anything better. We get Stell of Hearsay right here, which is pretty decent. Going to apply Vulnerable and Mark as a support. Checking to see if I need the meditation, which I don't, so we skip that. And then onto the first boss. If you are having trouble with, clearing this on auto, you can look at all the epiphanies you get and pick the best epiphanies, but I have E6 Haide, so, I really don't need to pay attention to any of the other epiphanies that Haide or Mika gets. Searching the shop here. It's not the worst thing if you want to buy a specific equipment like I just did there, a blue equipment. I got rid of my legendary one just because the blue one had a better engraving, and then later on I can get a different weapon and put that weapon over the blue one and keep the engraving. We don't need the meditation, so we just rest. Skipping all the Persona cards we get. There we get Bombardment Prep. We're going to remove that later on. But yeah, right now we're just mainly searching for Cthulhu and the copy event. We do get our repos here. We get 0 cost repos, which is pretty nice. It is past the first boss, so unfortunately we couldn't copy it before, but no, that shouldn't be a problem since we can just flash it later on or even meditate. Hit an epiphany on the second repose and then get into the 0 cost repose, which is pretty nice, saves me a flash. And then check the reinforced combat suit. Underwhelming engraving, so we just sell it. And then here we get Cthulhu. So let's see what weapon we actually get from Cthulhu. We just get a useless divine here. Don't really care about that. And then we get the 18% attack criticism of Discord weapon, which is pretty good. Even though ideally you'd want the ally attack one, since Veronica is going to be there for support. Veronica can be a sub DPS, so more attack on her isn't the worst thing. And this one is looking pretty good, so I don't want to do an entire new run just to min max that ally attack weapon. Unfortunately here, we do not get the right pendant we want, but we can just flash that later. And then we get Nightmare Hairpin here. Pretty sure it's worse, so we just sell it. And then the last question mark, we hit the copy event, which is actually super clutch because if we did not hit that copy event, this run probably would have been a brick. Because I want to save my copy core if I possibly can, since those are really rare. Last shop in the run, so we're going to be trying to min-max these engravings. And then use our last remove for bombardment prep. Five out of 5 removes. Try to meditate pendant here, see if we can get the right epiphany we want. Unfortunately we don't, so we just skip that. Then onto the second and last boss for the run. Then we just duplicate repos, of course. Both of these equipments are pretty bad, so we just sell. And yeah, that is the chaos run for our Veronica template. If we head over here real quick, I will show you guys the deck itself. $65K terabytes. Just title this crafting because we're going to be crafting on this, but this is the deck. Now, like I said earlier, this deck is actually going to be pretty expensive to make because shown up on the screen right now, you have to hit a 1 in 6 chance for the correct god for the divine. And then on top of that, you need to hit the 1 in 4 chance for the specific divine that you want. So it's pretty RNG dependent, and we're probably going to need to buy a lot of these abyssal cores. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy maybe like 20 of these, I suppose. And we'll just see how it rolls. So let's head over here to my combatants and let's head over to my Veronica, over to save data, and we have the deck right here called craft. So you just click this top right button, edit data, and it brings up all of these items that you have, all of these cores. We're going to use epiphany remanifestation on the fire prep. Since we didn't get an epiphany on that, we want shelling, so we just use shelling here. That is one of the epiphanies, and then we use another one on the pendant of resolution because this isn't the right one. I actually want this first one when using a skill card, 1 reload, because that also applies to Veronica. Using her reposes will give her reload. Those are all the base epiphanies done. Now we just need to get the divines on the repos, which is what we have these for. So you just start applying these. Hopefully we can get this pretty early. That one's pretty bad, so we do not want that. We may be here for a while, but I'll try to speed things up. Draw 1, unfortunately not the right god, and then we keep going. We just keep going until we get draw 1 cards of this unit. We just got draw again. So yeah, I may have to speed this up when I'm editing this video. Decrease cost of ego skill, no, we do not want that. Ooh, okay, that was actually kind of fast. That's one of them done. Okay, we only had to use 5. Nice. We go here again. Wait, I just got that back to back. Wait, that was actually insanely lucky. There's no way I just hit that back to back. We actually might get this a lot faster than we think. Draw 1, we don't want draw 1. That was the right god though, but it was just the wrong one. Gain 1 AP, no, we don't want that. Discard 2 exhaust cards, nope. Very surprised. Okay, we just got 3rd one there. Dude, our luck is actually insane. We actually might get this like really, really fast. If you've watched my other videos and Gordon, he said he had to spend like 70k black mass for this deck. So we are actually pretty lucky right now and not having to spend a lot. Gain 1 AP, we do not want that. Another gain 1 AP. Getting down to the last one here, the 20th one. Okay, just a regular draw 1. So we're gonna have to go buy more of these cores in the sortie shop, which shouldn't be a problem because we have like 200,000 black mass. I guess we'll buy 5 more. Maybe we get lucky. I don't want to overbuy them if I don't need to. And then edit data. Yeah, apply random divine epiphany. This is the other one that if you do not want to go draw 1 cards of this unit, you can go this one. But like I said earlier, this one isn't as future proof because if another unit needs a common card deck, it's going to draw into those cards and not repos. And there's the last one, draw 1 cards of this unit. So basically that's the deck done. Used a flash on Pendant and Fire Prep, and then just used a bunch of those random divines on the reposes. Min-maxed the gear as best as I could. When 2 cards are discarded through an ability by allies, draw 1 quietest card 1 time per battle. On Criticism of Discord, Mask of Emotions. So basically both of these engravings are pretty similar, but they're different. But I'm going to be drawing like 2 off of this, which is nice. And then the Stele of Hearsay. This will also be giving me Vulnerable or Mark when I discard 3 cards through an ally ability, which is pretty nice. You know, Vulnerable, best debuff in the game. So yeah, if we actually head over here to the sortie game mode, we can go check how much black mass I have left and how much I actually used. So I started with 214k down to 174k. So that deck took me around 40k black mass. I did have core potential saved. So if I did not have those saved, that would have been an extra 16k. So 56k for this deck. You know, definitely a lot more expensive than the Cassius deck, but the RNG for this deck is just so much more than the Cassius deck. So since Veronica is the best support in the game, I highly recommend to get a deck for her, possibly as fast as you can. She is the best drawer in the game, and you know, if you're playing at an endgame optimal level, ideally you want to cycle your entire 3 decks every turn. The problem with repos in season 2 is that it wasn't able to repos in a repos unless you had the draw divine, the regular draw divine, because this new divine we just got in this video today is actually a part of the new batch of divines that we got added this season in season 3. So in season 2 we had to get regular draw 1 divine, which, you know, wasn't guaranteed to draw into repos, so still RNG. At least this new divine guarantees us to be able to repos into repos after we use Pendant and Firing Preparation, but that has initiation, so you should always be using that turn 1. And yeah, here's the finished product of this Veronica deck I just crafted from scratch. I showed you guys step by step from start to finish, so I hope this video was helpful. You know, maybe you can craft some god tier decks easier now. If you know you were confused by the new game mode sortie and how to actually farm decks with it, I do actually have a sortie guide I uploaded a week ago if you guys have not seen that already. I'll go more in depth on the characters that are best to use for clearing sortie runs in that video, and you know, maybe some tips and tricks that might help you clear sortie runs. So highly suggest that video if you have not seen it yet, and you know, you want to farm decks in seasonal chaos and sortie. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope this video was informative. If it was, I'd very much appreciate if you could show love to the channel. We are nearing 5k subscribers, which is like such a huge milestone. I did not think we were going to hit that this fast, so I appreciate every one of you that shows support on my videos. It all means a ton to me. If you have any other ideas or suggestions for videos that you want me to do, leave it down in the comments below. I'll take it into consideration. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys take care, peace, and be safe until the next one.